Hello, guys. So, we are gonna talk about a very important topic in English language that it is present simple. Okay, so this is pretty common when you're speaking. It's just you can use it in your daily life, and it's gonna help you to communicate with people if you go abroad or if you have anyone who come to your Mexico and wants to speak with you. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so um, when do we use present simple? So we have three things for now because you can use it for more things, but in this case we are gonna only check for these three things. Okay, so first thing is for things that are always true, then for permanent situations, and then for habits. Okay, let's go for the first one. Okay, so we have the first one that it is we are gonna use it to talk about things that are always true. Okay, so we have few examples here. We have two and two make four. It snows in winter here, and apples grow on trees. Okay, so these are things that are generally true. Well, they are actually always true. For example, two and two make four. This is like maths, so I hope I am not making a mistake, but this is like something that we know is true, right? Also, it snows in winter here. I mean, if we are talking about Canada, we can say that it's like something like it's always true, right? In winter, it always snow. It always snows in Canada, and apples grow on trees. So unless we have like a very strange way to grow apples, or not that I know, they always grow on trees, right? So every time you want to talk about something that is always or generally true, you are gonna use the present simple. Okay. Um, for situations that we think are more or less permanent, right? So this is more to talk about, for example, the place you have been living like for the past, I don't know, 10 years, that you know that is like a permanent situation, that you're not like moving, or it's not holidays. Okay, so for example, I live in Querétaro. And maybe, I don't know, maybe people from another country, they will say they live in Canada. I don't know. Okay, but those are like permanent things. Not like you are gonna stay there forever until you die, but it's gonna be like, yes. And also, I love chocolate, and she works in a bank. Okay. The other one, we say that we were gonna talk about. We were gonna talk the present simple for habits or things we do like we normally do. Okay, so these are things that you do. For example, I don't know, in the morning before you go to school, to work. You brush your teeth. For example, I brush my teeth at 7 a.m. For example, in this one, it says I play tennis every Tuesday. I don't travel very often, and I always eat my breakfast at 6:30 a.m. Okay. Now we have adverbs of frequency. Okay. These ones, I mean, there are more of them that we can use, but I use some examples in here. For example, we can use like sometimes, often, usually, always, never. These are some of the words that we are going to use for the present simple in order to know that we are talking about present simple. These are called adverbs of frequency. Okay? Now, how are we going to form the present simple? So, in order to form the present simple, we need we need the base form that will be like the base form of the verb. Okay, but for the third person singular, that will be he, she, or it. We are gonna add something very special for these three um, for these three subjects. We are gonna add an s to the verb. Okay, so when we want to form a sentence in present continuous and we are talking about I don't know, my mom, that it will be she. Okay, my mom um, works at I don't know, coffee shop. Okay, so she works. Okay, the verb will be work, but you're gonna add an s to this verb, but only to these three things. Okay, three the third person singular, he, she, and it. Now, there are some rules that we need to use in order to place the s for the verbs. Okay, so for example, we have for the verbs with infinitive, for the verbs that are like the base form that are like infinitive, we only add like an s. Okay, these are like most of the verbs like reads, works, um, and some of them. Okay, also, okay, so when we have these verbs that end with a ss, sh, ch, x, or o, we are gonna add an es. Okay, so for example, in this one we have she does exercise. Okay, instead of do, we are gonna add the es. Okay, also we have miss, misses, finish, finishes, watch, watches, mix, mixes, and go, goes. Okay, and we have also another spelling rule that it says that when you have a y, but first you have a consonant, you are gonna just drop the y and add an ies. So, for example, if you have cry, that it ends with a consonant r, and then you have the y, you are gonna just drop the y and write ies. Okay, so for example, cries, studies, and so on. Okay. Now, when the last one, when you have a vowel and a y, like place, and you can see you have the a and the y, so you are only gonna add the s. You are not gonna do anything to the y, but you're gonna add the s. Okay. So he plays football, right? And that will be mm, like all the rules for this super S. Okay. Now we are gonna know how to form, like how to to form a real like sentence. Okay. We have a positive sentence. How are we gonna write it? Like just the way that I was just explaining before. For example, I work, okay? You work, we work, they work. What happened? What is happening in the next part that I have? We have the third person singular, right? So we have he, she, and it. And it says that we need to add the s, right? So he works, she works, and it works, right? Now we have the negative form. How are we gonna form this negative sentence in present simple? So we have, in this case, we have an auxiliary that is do, okay? So do is gonna help us to create the present simple. Okay, so we don't need anything else just to make it negative. So I do not or don't, you don't, we don't, and they don't. Okay, do not, and the contraction don't. Now, very, very careful in this one. When you have the auxiliary verb do, in this case, as we have the third person singular, these three little guys. Okay, and the last one. So, how do we form a question with the present simple? We have, as I was telling you before, with the negative form, we have these words that are do and does. These are gonna be called auxiliary verbs, right? As I was telling you before. These ones are gonna um, help us to create the negative sentence, and the question sentence. In this case, this is very different as a positive, okay? Or as a negative. That we have subject, then auxiliary, and then complement. So in this one, we are gonna change. We are gonna swipe. We're gonna swipe. Swipe. We're gonna swap. Sorry, the auxiliary verb with the subject. So first, we're gonna have the auxiliary that will be do or does. Then the subject I, you, we, they, or he, she, it, and the complement. Okay. So first, for the subjects, I, you, we, and they. Remember, we use do, and we have the verb normal. Okay, we leave it normal. Do I work? Do you work? Do we work? Do they work? And when we have the third person singular, that will be he, she, and it, we have a the does. The auxiliary will be does. So for this auxiliary verb, as we are already talking about present simple, we don't have to do anything else to the verb. Okay, does is already changing the sentence to present simple. So we don't need to do anything else to the verb. I know it's a little bit confusing, but you already have it there. So does he work? Okay. We are not gonna write does he works or does she plays, does it um, cries. Okay. We are always gonna leave it without the s, without this super S if we already have does, right? So, does he work? That will be it. I hope you didn't have any trouble understanding.